Hindsight is 2020. After months of being locked away, hair and beard like late-stage Howard Hughes, everyone just expected to put their lives on hold almost indefinitely. Summer blew in, and the powers that be decided to let everyone out for lunch break. And in a spot of good news for cinemas, Christopher Nolan's latest blockbuster effort was blowing on in. Tenet. Coming in with a whopping $205 million budget, Hollywood and theaters all over the world alike were banking hard on Tenet being the savior of cinema. A mega hit. A mega hit that would help to refill the crater of lost money that planet Earth being put on hold for several months had created. Yeah, not quite. For a variety of reasons, including ongoing restrictions at the time and a general public malaise with sitting about inside for hours on end, Tenet made almost $366 million at the box office, failing to secure the big boy blockbuster money it likely would have received in a normal release period and situation. Worse still, the film left many critics and audiences alike scratching their heads. Criticisms rained in from across the board, with the film's wooden dialogue, stiff characterizations, bizarre sound mixing, and complex, often frustratingly opaque storytelling style, leading to it being Nolan's most polarizing effort. 5 years on, Tenet has never felt more relevant or interesting as a story. The film is rich in complex symbolism and confronting ideas that more than warrant a rewatch. Presented as a puzzle, the film of course in general demands a second viewing, with an understanding of the closing plot twists allowing you, the viewer, to see the story leading up to that point in a different, clearer light. To kick things off, we are introduced to the protagonist. John David Washington's nameless CIA man is in Kiev, preparing a covert extraction operation of a compromised agent. The protagonist's code phrase with the agent in question foreshadows much of the film that is set to unfold.
We live in a twilight world. We live in a twilight world.
And there are no friends at dusk.
As he prepares to evacuate the opera house, the protagonist is rescued from potential death from a mystery team member. The music here, played in reverse, is the first clue as to who this is, and the funny red strap on the backpack is of course the essential one to remember. It's a surreal moment, hinting there are other forces at play here, and in the know beyond the protagonist and his team. Sure enough, the mission is compromised, and our main character is captured and sadistically tortured for information, with the implication being they're straight up extracting his teeth, one at a time. Rather than give up information or continue such a horrific ordeal, he jumps on the chance to consume his cyanide tablet, perishing as the opening title card slides in. This whole opening scene is a perfect showcase of showing, not telling. There is no real backstory here, but we can quickly surmise the kind of man the protagonist is and the kind of mission that he's on. He's a seasoned special agent. He's a team leader. The fact he's so calm when we first see him suggests this is far from his first rodeo. He's ruthless, as any agent of this level should be, and he's quick and effective in his mission. He's also surprisingly easily distracted, as evidenced by a KORD man catching him out when he stops to examine a piece of tech on the ground. His horrendous torture ordeal reveals more. Not only is his pain threshold high, but he'd also sooner die than talk. He is a typical agent, a pawn in the game of espionage, sent in as a human weapon for missions, programmed mentally to value his objectives and his organization over himself, ready to die at a moment's notice if that's what's required of him. The twilight world is his life in this equation, as his supposed death is the twilight of his regular life and the destruction of his mission and identity. The twilight world is his life in this equation, as his supposed death is the twilight of his regular life, and the destruction of his mission and identity suggested there were indeed no friends at dusk. As a pawn in the game, however, moved on the board by players he can't even see, the protagonist's mission is actually only just beginning. Because it would be a pretty strange and disappointing film if it just ended one scene in, wouldn't it? The compromise of his mission and the termination of his well-being were all mere tests, courtesy of a shadow organization named Tenet. And whether he likes it or not, he just got inducted into their ranks. Little explanation is given beyond that, and a confirmation they had to surgically rebuild his mutilated mouth is mentioned in passing, reminding us of the grim toll of the lead character's situation. When he suggests he'd like to resign, it's too late. Officially, he's dead. He is a prisoner of the espionage world he works in, unable to go anywhere else, unable to do anything else. There is no freedom, there is only the mission. I mentioned pawns in a game of chess, and we see exactly this already in the film, as the main man clearly has little to no real clue of the true meaning or purpose behind his new work. He is presumably a military man by trade, special forces, moving into the CIA and extraction work, putting his life on the line for relatively little reward. Wrapped in a blanket of don't ask, don't tell, as the real powers that be, often unseen, spin their own webs, seeing little to no value in the lives of their men, little more than statistics on a spreadsheet over a long enough time period. This is, seemingly, the case for so many who serve their country these days. Wars now, more often than not, especially for countries such as the US, seem to serve little benefit for the actual people back home. Soldiers are sent into war zones far abroad, engulfed in conflicts that have no clear-cut patriotic objective at their core, instead serving as geopolitical maneuvers and grandstanding. Dismantling and toppling nations they never would have paid a second thought to in regular time, often being deployed under reasons that are shady at best, and outright fraudulent at worst.
Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere. Nope, no weapons over there.
The protagonist's almost death and rebirth serves as a cruel initiation ritual into a higher level of the world behind our world, the secret movements the general public, the sheep, if you will never be privy to. The infamous CIA MKUltra program also relied on extreme trauma to develop the alters and personalities of its victims, before re-releasing them into the public as sleepers, able to be activated at a moment's notice, whilst being oblivious to their ordeal in their day-to-day life. While the protagonist is well aware of his ordeal in recent time, the suffering with which he goes through to find his way to Tenet is reminiscent of this type of torment. The man himself spends much of the film struggling to make head or tail of his situation, as nothing is ever what it seems, and the paranoid sense that he is being used as a tool by others is often bubbling below the surface. He's even given a handler, Robert Pattinson's Neil, who, while pleasant and professional enough at a glance, clearly knows far more than he's letting on, and is often pushing and leading the protagonist in particular directions throughout the film. Before we unpack the real meat of the plot, the actual concept of time inversion needs to be addressed. It was made abundantly clear in the lead-up to the film's release that it was technically not a time travel movie. There would be no Pym particles to travel through the nanoverse to other timelines, no DeLorean here. It's not so much the person moving through time in Tenet as it is time moving itself. We're informed of a bleak future consumed by war and pollution, where the technology to invert time itself has come to fruition, and those in the future are using it to manipulate the world today, a nefarious activity from those bitter about inheriting a scorched earth on the brink of permanent collapse. Invisible enemies unreachable to the characters we follow, still moving the world in an increasingly bleak direction. Inverting time is a painstaking, time-consuming, no pun intended, process, during which characters must bide their time as they move back to the period in question they need to arrive at, sporting protective gear such as oxygen masks to handle moving through a dangerous world now operating completely in reverse on all fronts. Painstaking detail was put into introducing viewers to a world gone backwards, greatly expanding upon and refining a concept that was surprisingly well done in Family Guy, of all things, in which Brian must rescue Stewie before his own birth plays out in reverse, and he is forced to go back into the womb of the mother he so heavily despises. What a nightmare scenario that would be. Here, devoid of crass toilet humour and Seth MacFarlane's endless voices, the inversion premise is dragged out to its most dramatic, live-action peak. There have been many criticisms over the years with this film that the next portion of its story, during which the main mission is established, is nonsensical and poorly explained. Despite the complicated premise, the actual mission and situation is surprisingly simple once you look past the science fiction elements. Kenneth Branagh plays Andrei Sator, I can't remember, who's really just Kenneth Branagh's Jack Ryan villain with a fresh coat of paint. The lack of originality in this regard is comical. It is one of the film's weakest points. Old Andrei is a low-rent Bond villain, in essence, a sinister oligarch from Russia, because of course, with a trophy wife and access to the time inversion technology from the future. His trophy wife, Kat, played with a suitably stuck-up posh veneer by Elizabeth Debicki, would like to divorce him, but due to some odd forgery, hijinks and blackmail, feels trapped in a loveless marriage with a miserable old bastard who just happens to have a lot of money. If only we could piece together why she was interested in him in the first place. In order to suss out what this guy is up to, the protagonist allies himself with Kat in order to get in good with Sator under the promise of helping her be finally rid of this guy once and for all. Sator's big villain scheme is incredibly simple. He's dying, and he would like the whole world to die with him. And through this time inversion technology, he can take not only the whole world right now with him, but everything past, present, and future as well, essentially wiping out the very essence of existence for this world and its people. To put it incredibly simply, we have ourselves a miserable, wealthy, aging oligarch setting the world on fire, dismantling it for his own selfish, hateful, egotistical ends. If you ask me, that's very fitting for an era where we're all quietly governed by the wealthy under the disguise of their puppet politicians doing their bidding, moving the world in destructive directions of profit for them and them alone, and losses for everyone else, time and time again. Sator's monstrous plans are basically a stretching of that concept to its most ridiculous conclusion, as now, with his problems being beyond what money can buy, he'd rather everyone perished with him than just accept the grim reality of his mortality. So underneath the bluff and bluster of its heady, time-reversal sci-fi, we've got more examples of a bleak look at the world behind our world, so to speak, where wars and secret wars are fought over revelations kept away from the public eye, kept on the down low to a level where half the underlings involved don't even really know why they're doing what they've been ordered to do. Now, when I was doing a bit of research for the video, one of the more polarizing aspects of the film I found was the performance of John David Washington as the protagonist. Critiques of his work here have ranged from him seeming cool and collected to bland, uncharismatic, and just not very good. So let's get the big elephant in the room out of the way right off the bat. This guy is indeed a Nepo baby. That surname is no coincidence. He is the son of Denzel Washington, and his path to showbiz stardom was a walk in the park, compared to all those regular folks spending years in drama school before spending their 20s and beyond as starving artists, struggling with a 1 in a million chance to really be even a vague name in the big world of showbiz. It's easy to be dismissive of such performers on account of their easy trips into such a lucrative world, and they seem to be just everywhere you turn right now. This year alone, Johnny Depp's daughter fronted Nosferatu. Arnold Schwarzenegger's son was a key character in The White Lotus, and Bill Pullman's kid popped up as the Sentry in Thunderbolts. Many regular viewers, regular people are tired of it, in show business and in life in general, of seeing entitled brats waltz on into worlds that, in theory, they have no business being in until they've paid their dues like everyone else. This channel largely covers professional wrestling, where it's frequently been an issue there as well. Leaving these issues to a side and judging an actor fairly and objectively, does John David Washington fit the role? And more importantly, does this character actually work? Yes and no. He plays the character in a fairly reserved fashion, highlighting the stress and confusion of his situation, suggesting the confidence he might once have displayed before his ordeal at the start of the film has been wrecked. He's often surprisingly awkward in first meetings with other characters, from uncomfortable banter with Neil to cumbersome flirting with Cad at the gallery. When he meets Sator, he jokes lightly, in the face of a dead serious threat to humanity, seemingly unsure of what else to say or do. This is all kind of lame. The guy's a spy on a wild, globe-trotting mission. Many viewers are naturally going to expect the charisma and supreme confidence of a James Bond, or the bravery and bravado of an Ethan Hunt. The protagonist lacks many of these cooler traits you would expect from a leading man action character, and he's often comparatively muted in presentation and behaviour. And the reason for that is very simple. That's because he's not a classic spy archetype, despite the setup of the film. He's actually a viewer archetype. Back in the late 70s, Francis Ford Coppola fired Harvey Keitel from Apocalypse Now. Keitel, as lead character Captain Willard, was doing too much for Coppola's taste. He was just doing too much acting. It was all just a bit rich. He was eventually dropped and replaced by Martin Sheen, who offered a far more low-key, stoic approach to the character. The reasoning was simple. As much as the film is about Willard's journey to deal with Colonel Kurtz, it is also about the viewer's witnessing of the horrors of the war, and for the viewers to see through Willard's eyes, he himself has to have enough space for them to project themselves onto him, which means the actor has to internalize much of the character's more blatant emotions and tics, and serve as a witness for viewers to witness through. The protagonist is much the same, especially during the first viewing of the film. Much like the viewer, the protagonist knows next to nothing of what is going on and is frequently blindsided throughout the film. We as viewers only learn the plot in tandem with him discovering the truth. His subtle, quaint demeanour gives viewers space to immerse themselves in the story unfolding around him, getting a feel of the chaos he has been plunged into. His early encounters with other key characters are more akin to a normal, perhaps even slightly introverted human being's behaviour than a cool super spy tough guy. With Neil, he tries to laugh off the banter. With Kat, he has to break past her initial disdain and distrust. With Sator, he's uncomfortable, and with Aaron Taylor-Johnson's Ives, he's slightly intimidated, dealing with a harder, edgier man of combat than himself for the first time in the film. In all of these cases, his reactions and lack of reactions give space for the viewer to get a feel for the temperaments of the rest of the cast, understanding their demeanours without having to chow down on endless exposition and backstory. The journey of the protagonist is a warped hero's journey, and one the film expects viewers to commit to and embark upon with him. From dangerous missions to the grim imposition of death, to being thrust into a new world of new danger, emerging from isolation for a mission of paranoia and global stakes like never before. And finally, when the truth of the film comes into view in the closing stretch, we experience the protagonist coming to terms with his own destiny, his own fate, and most importantly, the true nature of his reality at this point in his life. As an actor, John David Washington arguably lacks the needed physicality for the role. Scenes such as his demolition of some of Sator's henchmen in a restaurant look rather curious given his size and stature. It doesn't help that 6'3" Elizabeth Debicki wears high heels for half the film and is seemingly a foot taller than him almost. The protagonist's cheekier moments, among the few times in the film where the tone lightens up for a quick spell, often don't land, with his delivery seeming rather robotic.
I ordered my hot sauce an hour ago.
In the closing stretch of the film, however, he does successfully capture the torment of his character's new situation. He doesn't even get the privilege of personally taking Sator down, we'll get to that later, but he does prevent the time bomb of sorts from going off, ensuring the world yesterday, today, and tomorrow is not annihilated beyond comprehension. During that climactic scene, he also gets a quick phone call with Sator, who shares his bleak, nihilistic view on life, including suggesting that wiping out existence itself could prove him to be a god of sorts, extolling a level of power and ruin no mere mortal ever could or should be able to. And despite his training, despite the violent, secretive nature of his life, the protagonist is quick to try and reason at a human level with Sator, noting what he has in his life, including his young son.
When I'm done, life continues.
Not your sons.
My greatest sin was to bring a son into a world I knew was ending.
Failing to comprehend just how far gone down the rabbit hole of misery and hatred Sator really is. Washington sounds hopelessly desperate during the delivery of these lines, weak in many ways, fighting a doomed negotiation in the midst of a make-or-break conflict. And when all hope seems lost, that same red-strapped backpack man is there, invertent, as was teased by the backwards music of his first appearance near the start of the film, to take a bullet and ensure the protagonist, despite his truly just awful negotiating skills, can save the day. And with his part of the head-scratchingly confusing final mission complete, where one half of the team goes forwards in time, the other half is going in reverse, the protagonist goes on to discover the ugly truth of where his life is headed. The red-strapped guy, his guardian angel, someone he now knows is destined to die, is none other than Neil. Oh, spoilers! It's been out for 5 years. You haven't seen it by now, that's your problem. Not only is Neil doomed, but we discover it was the protagonist himself who sent him to his death years in the future. He's the protagonist for a reason. It was in the name. This whole mission, this temporal pincer, as they call it in the film, is his. This is his time across 2 different times. Neil was secretive, sure, but never shady. He really did have the protagonist's best interests at heart, as he's in fact his best buddy from the future, his main guy.
You've known me for years.
For me, I think this is the end of a beautiful friendship.
But for me, it's just the beginning.
With the film's plot complete, we, much like the main character, are now allowed to understand the actual story from start to finish. Sator is a troublemaker of the highest order, under the influence of jaded figures from the horrors of the future, now manipulating the present in a direction where it could well cease to be if this guy has his way. The protagonist, as much as he is this guy's counter right now in the film, more importantly, he's his counter in the future. He is the head of Tenet, an elite spy and leader who sends his best man back to the present to recruit his younger self and undo Sator's destructive mission. We saw the protagonist graduate into the lower ranks of Tenet at the start, and now we've followed him into his graduation to the top. The protagonist is more than just a minimalist lack of a name for the character. It tells us the truth of the man. His life before now is irrelevant, his backstory, his hobbies, his love interests. It's all gone, it doesn't matter. His whole life now revolves exclusively around this move into a world where time itself is up for grabs. It's a journey from the outside of the looking glass to within, from rookie to ruler, and for the viewer, from ignorance to understanding. The final scene of the film sums it up perfectly. When another member in the present day plans to have Kat assassinated, not wanting anyone from beyond the organization to know the ugly truth, the protagonist steps in because he can. Because it's not this member's call to make. He's actually the one in charge. And he'd rather deal with the insubordinate employee than the civilian he trusts to keep quiet.
I realized I wasn't working for you. We've both been working for me. I'm the protagonist.
When the protagonist says,
Mission accomplished.
it is not with glee or victory. This isn't James Bond closing out the mission and getting the girl. It's not Ethan Hunt breathing a sigh of relief after saving the day in the nick of time. It's a quiet ending to a mission that guarantees this man will one day send his best friend to his death, something he has to live with now, years in advance of it even happening, and will never pursue romance with the woman he's taken a shine to over the course of the film. It's the realization that he's in the big game now, and will never be free to return to his old ways, to his old life. He will never live normally, regardless of whether or not he wants to. The score for the scene is somber and sad, and the man himself is teary and stressed as he watches Kat walk away with her son. They're walking back into the regular world. Their ordeal is over, while he stays on the outside, now permanently locked into a cold war the everyday populations are kept in the dark about. As Neil's final narration notes, it's the secrets of this world, the disasters the public never even get warned about, never get to catch a glimpse of, that can do the most damage, and saving the world from them is a thankless task, carried out by invisible knights shrouded in obscurity. The film closing on the shot of Kat and her son wandering off hammers this home. This is a snapshot of the life the protagonist will never have, the family, the regular home, the everyday activities and chores. It's his responsibility to preserve it for those who actually can and do have all of this and more going on. The credits then blow in on the back of the intro beat to Travis Scott's The Plan, a song written specifically for the film. The lyrics touch on various moments in the film in a haze of rumbling bass lines and hints of ambient psychedelia, playing out as the dreamlike memories of the protagonist and his journey in the film. An epilogue of sorts as viewers get up and do something else with their day. Or just grab the remote to find something else to watch, of course. So how much does John David Washington nail this role? Well, he's not great, but he's not terrible to the point of requiring a Razzie either. Someone like an Aldous Hodge could have embodied the physical presence and imposition the script demands more effectively, while someone like Michael B. Jordan would have provided a stronger leading man charisma to front the film with. But Washington's reserved, collected approach to the material, rather than lazy or outright bland, is in fact a fitting approach to a character who, by design, provides viewers with a vicarious space to inhabit as they sit through the film. As interesting as the main character's journey and the film's general themes are, there are still several key flaws with this movie that prevent it from quite being the sci-fi espionage masterpiece it would have, could have, should have been. While much of the film's storytelling style revolves heavily around a strict show-don't-tell principle, the fact is, people have to talk sometime, and the lingo in this film is often stilted, basic, and cumbersome. The cat character in particular suffers severely from this issue. Elizabeth Debicki is a rock-solid actress who has done a variety of interesting roles convincingly over the years. That being said, even the finest performers to have ever graced the big screen would have struggled with the clumsy cracks of vengeful dialogue plopped into her final confrontation with her husband.
I'm not the woman who could find love for you even though you scarred her on the inside. I'm the vengeful bitch you scarred on the outside. Okay. Alright.
Their abusive dynamic in general is cardboard in its development and execution. Sator physically assaulting Kat should of course be horrifying. There is nothing funny about domestic abuse, but the grim moment of him striking her comes right after his utterly bizarre monologue about negotiating with tigers.
You don't negotiate with a tiger. You admire a tiger until he turns on you, and you feel its true f***ing nature!
Okay. Alright.
It's such ludicrous, one-note villain dialogue that it cuts the tension of the scene in half, stripping away some of the dramatic impact of his cruelty to his missus in the process. This is corrected considerably when Sator ups the ante by sending an inverted bullet through Kat later on, highlighting both his sadism and the horrors of inverted tech when applied to the human body. As effective and confronting as that scene is, the clunky chit-chat with these two frequently undermines the push to unsettle viewers with their increasingly murderous, crumbled relationship. The curious sound mixing further hampers the dialogue across the board and was arguably the main thing people who watch this film, critics, audiences, whatever, could not stand. This is a recurring criticism of Christopher Nolan's work, best exemplified by Tom Hardy's truly bizarre accent for Bane in The Dark Knight Rises.
It doesn't matter who we are. What matters is our plan.
In the comics, Bane was typically depicted as being of Hispanic ethnic origin and hailing from out in the Caribbean. In the film, he's a very pale Caucasian hailing from a prison near Jodhpur instead. For some reason, though, despite the geography, Hardy opted to attempt to adopt an Irish traveller accent, reminiscent of famed bare-knuckle boxer Bartley Gorman.
The fighting, I mean. When I get men in front of me, they try to kill me. They try to wipe me off the face of the earth.
Where comic Bane pumped his body full of venom to be a jacked menace, movie Bane wears a mask that protects his horribly damaged face and provides him with anesthetic to get through the day and numb him to physical torment. The combination of Hardy's oddball voice work and the muffling of his protective mask made Bane just a little hard to follow, unless the volume's up and you're listening very closely. Far from a mistake, Nolan confirmed this was by design, with the concept being to push viewers into a deeper state of immersion by zoning in on, picking apart just what the hell it is Bane is saying, at any one time or other.
I've gotten reckoning it and the borrowed time you've all been living on.
What? Tenet takes this demand of the viewer's attention to new extremes. The sounds of the environment often do audio battle with the characters speaking, from crashing waves to gunfire to the engines of moving vehicles. On top of that, Ludwig Göransson's score, an absolute work of extravagant, moody art, is turned up to 11 in many scenes, once again forcing viewers to sift through the sound to actually find the words being spoken. In order to reflect the emphasis on entropy, and more importantly, reverse entropy, Göransson inverted his own work, introducing a variety of curious Baroque techniques, such as playing out melodies in reverse, a litany of crafty editing concepts, and through his signature electronic approach to musical construction. Harsh electronic beats often beat the viewer over the head, establishing tension in key moments of action and suspense, from backwards car chases to Neil casing a swanky free trade zone at Oslo airport for a future heist. The result is a tense, unpredictable atmosphere, forcing viewers into an often uncomfortable sensory experience that adds a layer of tension and confusion to the unfolding film. The bizarre sound mixing, as frustrating as it has proven to be for many viewers,
That explosion seals up the algorithm. Well, we better put it out the hole before the bomb goes off,
holds some merit in getting us further into the role and stress of the protagonist, who is frequently playing catch-up and guesswork with the people and objectives he encounters. We, much like the protagonist, are on the outside, and notice that the audio in the closing stretch of the film, as he realizes his true potency in the future, becomes clearer and easier to follow, with tidier voice-to-background noise ratios and less general audio clutter, reflecting his and by extension now our understanding of the actual implications of the story. Overall, despite its often cold, clinical approach to character development and emphasis on the situation and mood over backstory and detail, Tenet is a compelling puzzle with a lot more to say than meets the eye on an initial viewing. Much like the protagonist, worse, if anything, most of us live in a twilight world, day to day, oblivious to the machinations, oblivious to the decisions that move us into position, into lives and objectives most of us didn't ask for or even particularly want. Through the lens of a spy caught up in a truly bizarre bit of time crime, Christopher Nolan managed to say a lot about the direction of the world around us as greed, corruption, and bloodthirst continue to send it nearer to the midnight chime on the doomsday clock. As greed, corruption, and bloodthirst continue to send it nearer to the midnight chime on the doomsday clock, with the rich getting richer and the rest moving towards a truly doomed serfdom, unaware of what's really ever going on, or who's benefiting from or even causing the chaos half the time. More than half, let's be real. Of course, art is, at its core, merely subjective, and this is just one interpretation of one of the decade's stranger, more distinctive mainstream Hollywood efforts thus far.